basically kind of up against Route 3 there, and then coming around to the backside. Kind of the primary portion of the presentation. I do have some of the engineering drawings in here as well if we need to go over that. But they're a little bit more dry and boring. So I'm assuming that at this point I've talked plenty, and the board may want to have some questions, question and answer time. And I know there's a number of members of the community here that probably wants to ask a lot of questions and understand a little bit more from the developer as well.
Gary, would you be able to just leave the color version up just for reference?
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll back to that now. Okay. Do you want me to hang out up here while you ask questions? Or?
Yeah, why don't you do that? If you don't mind, we'll might keep you on your feet for a little
while. That's all right.
Okay. So,
I sit down long enough all day.
So we'll have the commission ask questions, and then when we're finished, we'll allow the residents to come up and come forward and ask questions.
Okay.
If that's okay with you?
I also just wanted to mention I have Jim Olin with Romanelli and Hughes with me tonight. So Romanelli and Hughes, well-respected developer in Ohio. And then I have Kyle Shreves, who's from EMH&T. Kyle's the engineer for the project. And so if there are engineering-oriented questions, Kyle can answer those as well. You have questions? All right.
Allison's got questions.
I like it.
So let me just start by saying, you know, if I could keep this a golf course, I would. My father and I played this course many, many hours together before he passed. And so it's just this highest and best use thing where the landowner has, you know, the right to move on. And I think that's where we're headed here. You know, if I were directly adjacent to this development, I think the concerns I would have would be 3 or 4 things, right? First of all, it's traffic, right, on this corner of Walnut and Route 3. I know that we have been presented with a MOU for a traffic study, and that's going to be really, really critical to our decisioning on this thing, number one. Number two, just so everybody knows, we've taken actions to take your proposal for your traffic study to Delaware County, to ODOT, to our engineering team, and I know they've made some recommendations on how to just, you know, put some of additional things in there that we'd like to see. So I think we're waiting on you to come back with another cut at the traffic study, right? You addressed some of it. Another concern I would have, just if I lived up in communities of Galena or Heathermere especially, I'd be very concerned about the buffering, and I think you've addressed some of that. There's some very mature trees that go up Zor Street, beautiful trees, and I'm glad that you're committed to saving those trees for this project. And I guess the other thing would just be overall density, and that kind of lends to the traffic concern. But if I kind of go down through my questions, and we'll go to you guys next.
How about if we go by area? That way we can all just address. Okay.
I can jump in on one thing when you're talking about traffic and whatnot. One that I have is Fiskeview, where you have it being an ingress egress. I did see in your writing you're talking about 30-foot landscape buffer.
Mm-hmm. Between
right there to where it's emptying down to Fescue.
Uh-huh.
Can you elaborate on that for the residents who live right there?
Yeah, between the communities, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, so that 30-foot buffer is there for a couple of reasons. Primarily, we want to create a little bit of separation, but primarily we want to make sure that we preserve those trees. So if we ran those lots all the way up to the property line, then, you know, if there were trees on someone else's side of the property line, let's say a single family buyer buys that lot, in 5 years they decide they don't want those trees and they go cut them down. We don't want them to be able to do that. So we're maintaining that buffer, or we're maintaining that landscape strip so that those aren't part of what the single family buyers will have ownership over. Those will be the responsibility of the entire homeowners association. So all of that area essentially is going to be left natural. and is going to be supplemented with additional landscaping, does that make sense?
And then once you're finished with all your phases, it will be turned over to the homeowners association?
That's correct. Yeah. So no one person will have control over any one of those trees. The entire homeowners association will be there to maintain it. And the homeowners associations are commercially or professionally run organizations. It's not kind of a loose association of just the homeowners anymore. They're going to maintain that area in perpetuity.
And from the beginning of this project, year and a half, we have emphasized the importance of the mature trees staying.
Yeah. And that is the intent. All of those mature trees along the property line, we want to keep those there. So we're creating some separation so that we can keep utilities out of those areas, and that we can maintain, so that we don't have to do a lot of grading in that area, and so that we can maintain that tree line. And it's as important for us as it is for the adjacent residents, right? I mean, the new residents, I'm sure, would love to have as much privacy as the existing residents would like to have. They'd like to have those trees there as well.
Can I jump in
Sure.
on this topic? If you have my packet, it's on page 1, number 5 at the bottom, tree replacement. So while we're talking about that buffer between, if maybe you could go back to slide 2, that's the satellite picture of it. I don't know if you can see, but currently along that line between the golf course, there is an existing golf cart path.
Yes.
It would make a great bike path if we kept that. If you can see that northwest corner where the tree that woods is in the northwest corner, there's probably 5 or 6 acres of trees there. I know we've talked about keeping that and preserving it. It looks like you've kept about a third of it, but it looks like the majority of that northwest corner is going to be
about a half of it.
bulldozed.
Yeah, about a half of it we're preserving.
So I would just like to read from our subdivision regulations. It says, when preparing and reviewing subdivision plans and developments, good faith effort shall be made to preserve natural vegetation areas. Streets, lots, structures, utilities, and parking areas shall be laid out to avoid unnecessary destruction of heavily wooded areas or protected trees, which are over 6 inches in diameter. Land developers are encouraged to designate heavily wooded areas as park preserves. So I see an opportunity here. You can go back to the plan.
Okay.
In that northwest corner, the 9 or 10 lots that are the upper hook of that are basically what's taking out half of that forest. And if we could maintain the golf cart path and change it to a bike path and keep what's north of that currently, keep the woods untouched. Eventually turning that over to the village as a park, the 5 or 6 acres that it is. We could take that bike path then up between the home lots and the water reservation lots, or the water impoundments, come back down through maybe behind the townhomes and the commercial, and connect it so that there would be then a bike path that goes all the way around the development. And from that, we could then try to connect that to Sambuca across the street and Primrose across 3. We already have the islands for sidewalks built into those locations. Having a walkable neighborhood is important in our code and our subdivision regulations, and that would give us connection to those businesses. I can see, young families walking their kids across the street to Primrose, going to Sambuca with their wagon to get pumpkins at Halloween time, but we need those sidewalk and bike path connections to do that. So if that's something that you would be willing to consider, I know those are 2 very important items on my list, that we preserve that woods in its entirety and then make the connection of the bike path around it. So that was just me commenting on Kathy's point.
I think that's something that we can go back and discuss, and just look at what the impacts are, and see if we can figure out a way to accommodate, a lot of those goals.
So Gary, HOAs were mentioned. I just want to make clarification, right?
Yeah.
So how many HOAs do you envision in the subdivisions? Just multiples or one?
So what really happens in a subdivision like this, where it's more than one development type, is you end up having a master association over the entire development, and the master association really takes care of all of the common open space areas. So they'll take care of the signage, the retention ponds. Sorry, they'll take care of the signage, the retention ponds, all of those things, kind of for the area in common, and then each of the sub-communities, the townhomes, the patio homes, and the single-family homes will have a sub-association under that master association. And the reason they do that is because each one of them has a kind of a different level of amenity structure associated with them. So the fact that the patio home folks, they get their yards mowed, they get their sidewalks, shoveled, they get their driveways plowed, they get all of those amenities that folks in the single family communities don't get because they take care of their own space. And so you don't want to make the single family buyer pay for amenities that they're not getting. So they have a sub-association for that space, and they have a sub-association for the single family, and they have a sub-association for the townhomes. So it'll really operate a little bit like a Christmas tree. You'll have the three sub-associations, and you'll have the master association over the top. And I'm assuming that the commercial portion of it will have its own association that takes care of, repaving the parking lots, doing all of the maintenance for the commercial area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and just to be clear, all the open space, the 30% open space,
Yes.
will be maintained by the HOA.
So yes, some of them, the areas that are inside the individual community, like the little pocket park inside the patio home area, that will be taken care of by the patio home sub-association. But all of the perimeter open space, all of the stormwater ponds, the community green, all of those things will be taken care of by the master association.
Have you done an estimation on what the population would be?
Have not. We could. I think that would be pretty easy to do.
I did.
Did you? All right.
Well, I think the number is low, but I don't know obviously the number of 2-bedroom homes and 3-bedroom homes or
Yeah.
townhomes. So I got 728, so 750 around there. And even though it looks like the open space requirement is met, as far as like a park, I think the 1.5 acres is small. So because of the subdivision regulations require 5 acres per 1,000 residents.
Mm-hmm.
So I think adding that park back, keeping the existing woods would help get us closer to that number like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can do a population estimate, that's something that I would like to see.
We can. I think it's a pretty easy math. I mean, there's an average household size for each of these types of developments, and we can just apply that. And we have a number of different open spaces, so we can certainly look at and talk about what happens with the trees and making that a park. We also have a space down in the southeast where that bike path connectivity is, where we have a park. And the community green at 2 acres isn't really intended to function as the only open space for the development. It's really intended to function as a village green. So it's not intended to be sports fields or active park area. It's really intended for community events, gathering.
Can we
stuff like
talk
that.
about that open space that is underneath the power lines?
Yes.
You pointed out that is the one place that you right now have designated the bike path to go through, which I think that'll be nice to have there. This is on page 3 of my notes at the bottom. So the development plan remarks that there's an existing private barn on that property, and that there will be a new build single family home at some point in time.
Yep.
So is that who's going to own that land?
So the story behind that is that Jim Grosinger owns that barn.
Right.
And he has a lot of his toys, whatever you want to call it, stored in that barn. And he ultimately wants to build a small house next to that barn for
Right.
somebody to live in and kind of watch over that. We haven't been able to talk him out of that. But that is the only use that is ultimately permitted down there. The rest of the area, all of it, the whole 6 acres, aside from that corner, is scheduled to remain as permanent open space within this zoning. So designated within this zoning, can't be used for anything else but permanent open space. And it's accessible by all of the members of the community. Obviously, the bike path is there to connect, people from the adjacent subdivision up into the commercial area. That was a request that the village had kind of early on, which I think made a ton of sense to create some pedestrian connectivity between the communities, not just the sidewalks. I mean, obviously, we're going to have sidewalks that are joined, with that street connection. But then we'll have the path as well, which also connects back up to the trail that runs up and down
Yeah,
the
yeah,
old railroad.
that's all required
Yeah.
by the zoning code.
So
Yep.
I'm going back to the early renditions of this.
Mhm.
There was a pickleball court and a pool. I don't see either of those.
The pickleball court and the pool were there when we had multifamily in the project. We took the multifamily out ultimately because it wasn't well received. So the pickleball court and the pool were ultimately going to be, potentially open to the public, but also an amenity for the multifamily.
Well, being open to the public, I know, is what drew a lot of us into this.
Yeah,
And now we see nothing of that.
yeah. And it was really the multifamily that paid for that. They're just the generation from the multifamily helped kind of finance ultimately that, and getting rid of the multifamily made that kind of an expense that the development couldn't necessarily bear on its own.
Is the street naming that you have on here just an example? Are
Yes.
Okay, so it's
It-
not
so
something
it-
that we should
it-
really look at.
And we can look at a bunch of different street names. I just pulled some rabbits out of the hat.
Okay.
I just went with
We
the
can
arrowhead.
we can give you ideas.
I went with the arrowhead theme. We are open to whatever street names.
I mean, we
the
don't have
village
wolves
wants.
in the area, but we have coyotes, so that might be more appropriate.
What I think if you have examples that you want to provide, we're definitely happy
Okay.
to. These obviously haven't been registered. We haven't done final engineering. We
Right,
haven't done
right.
plating.
That's what I thought. I just
Yeah.
thought I'd make.
We had to name them
You
something.
wanna say something?
How close are we getting to the 25%, which we have in our zoning now for multi-wall? This is 35%.
I want to go back a little bit to what your zoning code says, because the 25% is for multifamily.
Which we define as having a shared wall.
So in your zoning code, under W density, it has a definition for multifamily density, and it says the total number of new multifamily dwelling units proposed to be located shall not exceed a maximum of 25% of the total number of housing units. You go right below that, and it has single family / attached densities. And it says other types of residential units may be built without limitations noted herein. Such units may be developed at a maximum density of 2 units for gross acre for single family units and 4 units per gross acre for attached units such as common wall attached, townhomes, patio homes, or 4-unit structures. And we are for sale townhomes. So that led us to believe that this was defined differently than multifamily, because that's the way your code reads.
So even by that, I know we've had the conversation, so you know where we would lie on that with the 25%, regardless of how you want to read into it. But you said that the 4 to 6% density, the 4 density,
4 units per gross acre.
and that area is at 8.9. So it's more than twice the density that we would consider.
I
Or
read
without
that
a divergence. I would just say that would be a divergence that you would have to note.
when I saw gross density, I took that to mean the overall project. So the combination of the single family, the patio homes, and the townhomes, the overall gross density is 2.4 units to the acre.
we can discuss that further.
Happy to.
Yeah.
The width of the roads, you want to go to 24 feet, correct? I believe it's in your plan.
Only, I believe, on the private streets for the interior streets for the townhomes.
All right, and I understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
footage
The
is not.
public streets will have to meet the public street standards.
Okay, so on the homes, the private homes,
Mhm.
will there be off-street parking available? Because, I mean, people have guests, they have parties. And with 24 feet, does that allow for that?
We can certainly look at some additional parking spaces on the interior of it. Each of those townhome units is going to have 2 garage spaces and 2 driveway spaces, very similar to kind of a single-family home. But, you know, I think if the planning commission wants us to look for some additional parking spaces, I think we have some room to do that.
Because if you have a mother and 2 children and one drives, and, you know, it would be, or you have any kind of visitors, it would be very difficult.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at that.
In the village commercial section, I didn't find it until today, but it looks like some of the building sizes exceed the 10,000 square feet. One I think was,
We actually ran through that with Matt. All of our building, the footprints themselves are a 10,000 square foot footprint.
okay, so
which I
that would
think is what
include the
code
second
covered.
floor.
I
the
think the
square
code says
footage.
footprint, right?
The code
Um,
says footprint, yeah, but the numbers that you gave, one was, I mean, there was 2 of them that were in excess of 10,000 square feet. So that would,
Oh, on
Then
the
in-
plan?
it was actually in the letter to Tom. Exhibit 11, I think is what it. Let me find it.
So if they did get made 2-story, if you had one of those made a 2-story office, it would be 20,000 square feet.
That's
But-
where you're,
But it would be a 10,000 square foot footprint, which I think is the limitation.
that's what I
of the
wanted to
code.
verify.
Yeah, 10,000 per square feet per floor is okay.
Okay. Yes, I
Because
agree.
I
agree.
checked on that too. I was like, wait.
It just
hold on.
didn't say, it didn't clarify one or the other. Also in that commercial area, you noted that the sidewalk width would be 5 feet.
Mhm.
In the subdivision regulations, it, for commercial areas, it requires 6 feet.
Okay.
So that's something that you'll either need to put as a divergence or,
I don't
Make
know that
6
I don't know that we'll need to. I mean, the idea for the commercial area is going to be to have wider sidewalks that kind of, in a lot of cases, it will be right up to the architecture. And so, you know, I don't think a 6 feet sidewalk is necessarily a
Okay.
problem for us in that case.
you also noted in the divergences that there will be a divergence from parking, and you said it was from E, the zoning ordinance 2602E, which calculates the number of required spaces, and F, requiring single-family homes to have 2-car garages, 20 by 20, multifamily to have a 1.5-car garage, 16 by 20. I put 10, but it should be 20. So what are you asking for there?
The commercial part is really the hardest for us because we don't know who the tenants are yet. And the way that your code kind of writes it, the code is kind of written for individual uses. Sorry, I could get away from the microphone. So the code's written for individual uses. So for instance, it says a restaurant has to have this and a store has to have this. But we don't know who those are yet. So we have no way of kind of pre-programming how many parking spaces we're going to need because we don't know how many restaurants are going to be there, how many, you know, how much of that is going to be commercial space, how much is that is going to be office space. So it's more common in kind of mixed use areas where you have a variety of different uses to create kind of a blended amount of parking space per square foot, which is what we're trying to do here. And I can't remember. I think we said 4.5 one space, 4.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of building area. And so that's in part that's actually kind of going to be our limitation for the density. So we'll never get to the maximum commercial density here because we don't have enough space for all the parking we would need. So we're going to have to ultimately coordinate as we go through and lease these buildings up. I say we because I'm not involved in it, but Jim and his group They're going to have to take into consideration the parking needs of each individual tenant as they lease them, and make sure that, kind of everybody's accounted for and that adequate parking is accounted for.
Okay, that makes sense. But then F, it talks about the size of the garages. Do you foresee that not meeting the zoning code?
What is the zoning code? What did I write in there?
You said that the parking, you're asking for a divergence in E, which is the number of commercial spaces, and then F, which is requiring single family to have 2-car garage and multifamily to have a 1.5-car garage.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just asking, what is the divergence you're asking for there?
I'm not exactly sure. In fact, the townhomes that were designed for the project, they all had 2-car garages, didn't they? They all had 2-car garages. The patio homes all had 2-car garages. And so we might be able to just eliminate that piece of it.
But also going into our favorite side yard setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So you have it at this point at 7.5, which would be 15 feet between.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking for a divergence of 6 down to 12 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I had a conversation with the fire chief today, and we need to continue that conversation. I don't know that this would pass, so I'll need to continue that conversation with
The
him.
6 feet doesn't include abutments either, or encroachments,
Yeah.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from a,
windows,
we can-
fireplaces could
yeah,
go into that 6 feet.
and we can have a further conversation with the fire department. 6 feet is a pretty common side yard. We've done it in Sunbury on a number of different developments in a number of different communities. It does meet fire code. So we can have a further conversation with the fire chief about that, just make sure that they're comfortable before we proceed forward.
You mentioned Sunbury.
In some communities, they do as little as 5 feet.
Yeah,
That's not what we're asking for, obviously.
I don't think you'd get it.
No.
But just so you know, like, we don't want to be Sunbury. So just so we
I get
understand
that. I wasn't trying to compare you to Sunbury.
I
I was
know.
only making a
But-
code comparison.
yeah, I
It meets
appreciate
fire
that.
code.
Yeah, I appreciate
It can
that.
be done.
But when you look at Sunbury, from Sunbury down through Galena and Genoa and into Westerville, there aren't any 3-story apartments or townhomes in this whole stretch of land. There are some over by 71, but that's a different kind of district. That's a commercial business type, multifamily district for that. So I'm not yet completely on board with that. I don't know if I want to be the first one to put in a 3-story, when we have a very, clear 2-story limit in our zoning code. So I'm not a big fan of putting that there when, as you're driving up Route 3, you don't see that anywhere else.
Yeah. One of the things that we tried pretty hard to do is keep the 3-story buildings, even though it says 3-story, we tried to keep the height not much taller than the 2-story adjacent to it. So in the design of the architecture, even though it has 3 floors, we've tried to keep that height very similar. So instead of a 45 or 50 foot tall 3-story building, we're trying to keep those much more in line with kind of a 2-story height.
I appreciate that.
The other reason that we do that, and there's a very good reason that we're doing it, is we want to get the garages tucked under the building. Because we could drop a floor out of them, but then we'd have to hang the garage off the front or off of the back of the townhome. So if you've ever seen a townhome with a bunch of garages just pooched along the front of it, they're very, very ugly.
I think there's some really nice ones being built in Sunbury right now, next to, behind the library and next to the post office. They're not.
Do they have attached garages?
It's, they're apartments, but they're 2-story. Do they have an attached garage? I think they do. Detached garage. It can be nicely done. Yeah. Thank you.
That's the reason that we did it. We want to get that. We want to have very nice townhomes. They are going to be for sale. People prefer to have their garage attached to their house. They want to be able to walk in to the garage with their groceries. They don't want to have to walk across the street for a detached garage. They want to be able to walk down their stairs and into their car in the morning. And so from a buyer's perspective, it's very preferable to have that garage integrated into the house. And we want to provide some pretty nice square footage. So if we did a two-story with a garage underneath, we'd have to severely limit the square footage of the townhome. And if we did a two-story with the garage detached, then we could have the two-story square footage, but then not the convenience of having the garage as part of the unit, which, you know, people are looking for. So it
Yeah.
purely is
From
kind of a
the
response to the market.
renderings that you showed, it looked like there was a two-car driveway leading into two-car garage. So in my head,
Yeah.
you take that garage and put it over the driveway. If they need additional parking, there's on-street parking in the front, and you drop that down. And then, you know, I'm carrying my groceries in from my attached garage into my first floor where my kitchen is, and I don't have to take it up an entire floor. Everything I bring into the house, it has to go up an entire floor to reach the living. So that's just kind of where my head is on that.
The other thing that you lose with that, though, is for your living space, you lose a view out the back window because you're parking the garage on the back side of that. So for your kitchen area, for your dining area, all those things, you have no view of the outside world. You're staring at the back of the garage wall, and that's another reason why we did that. We would really prefer to keep it that way. At the end of the day, if it can't happen, if that's what the village decides, then, you know, we're going to have to consider that. But this would be something that we
It's
would.
just where I am today.
Yeah, I understand. It's fine. I mean, everybody kind of feels differently about these things, but there are real market-driven reasons and architectural reasons why we've done that.
As far as the actual construction of the different areas, I know Romanelli and Hughes mostly does commercial construction. Do you know which builders will build out each of the areas?
Well, Romanelli and Hughes is primarily, for those of you who don't know, Romanelli and Hughes is primarily a custom home builder.
Right.
So they're going to be building, some of the product in the.
Can I have you speak into the microphone, please? Sorry.
So right now, all the architecture for all the commercial is ours. All the architecture for the townhomes is ours. We also have the same architecture. The Move Down Empty Nester product was stuff that we designed as well. So the patio homes. So right now, we've got 3 of those. I borrowed some elevations on some others. We have no builder picked. Right now, we're looking at as much as we can handle ourselves.
Sorry, turned myself off. So Romanelli and Hughes has the design, but there might be another builder that's actually coming in to do the construction of your design.
It's possible. It's possible, but
Okay.
we would. I mean, it's our site. We're going to be the ones in controlling the standards and the products and the elevations for it because this is a massive investment for us.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I have a question. I want to say something positive. I like your designs. And we aren't going to completely bury you, okay?
he's bad luck right now.
I know. It's tough, isn't it? So let's get a little positive here. I do like the back. I like where you're doing the commercial. I like the back street parking. I do like the townhomes with the parking in the back because it makes it look more stately and you also have more frontage. My daughter lives in one of these, and actually it's very nice. You have a mudroom when you come in. There's steps, but these aren't for old people. They're not for us, for me anyway. So I do like the design. I think it makes it very look clean, and the back looks clean, and that's where their garbage is, and that's where you come in. So I do like those. The density, yes, we've already discussed that. I want the less density as possible, but square footage is money, and I understand that with the roads and everything else. But I personally drove through all the neighborhoods, and I do that so I can get a visual on it. When you drive from Galena and you go to Sunbury back in here, Heathermere, it's like a red light. We can see this is Sunbury, and I don't want to be anywhere near what Sunbury does. It looks like it just looks cheap because with the footage that close, it's so obvious. And if you want to go look and just kind of like get that visual as you go through. So I do love what you're doing. I just want to make sure that we keep style, class, increase our homes here in the village.
Sure.
So whatever changes or however we can negotiate or whatever.
Are you referring to separation between buildings? Is that what we're talking about right now?
Right. And if you go to Hedemere, if you go back there where somebody is and they've built and they've allowed this to happen, it looks it's so stark, the differences.
So I use 12-foot separation between buildings in New Albany. I use it in Dublin.
Okay.
It's a design with the patio homes. The objective behind a patio home is to have less maintenance so they can come and travel, and it keeps the HOA fees down. They're not looking for a big yard. They're not looking for big separation between their homes. So,
And I understand all that. I
Yeah.
really do. But from a
but
visual
that's why we do it by design.
I'm no problem. I get it.
And some of that's related to architecture as well.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm
If the architecture is really well done, the separation doesn't matter as much. If you have cheap architecture, the separation really makes a difference.
and I know you're a great builder. Yeah. Okay.
So for the sake of the public, I'll let you know, we're also wanting to speak with them about extending the sidewalk from Heathermere. Take it all the way down here. So you could take from Heathermere, you go to the sidewalk, you could go all the way to San Bocas. Because I find myself riding the bike in the street and I don't want to be doing that. So we're hoping to get them to cover that expense for us.
I think I only have one more comment. Sorry to keep you all so late.
Only
And
one?
And I do actually
I'm s-
really like the
I'm so
design. I just have a lot
disappointed.
of questions. For both the patio home area and the single family home area, the development plan says the minimum frontage is 52 feet.
Mhm.
But when I look at the plans that are attached here, I found several in the patio home that's at 46, and then several in the single family that's at 47.
I saw that in your notes and I was looking for that. And
I have it highlighted on the map if you want to see.
I was actually going to try and it's giving me some weird stuff. And look at this kind of on my screen as well, because you're talking primarily about the patio home area. So those are 52-foot lots across the frontage, and where you see the 46 and those lots, I think you're primarily talking as you go around the outside of the curve. So those are kind of pie-shaped lots. So the way we measure lot width is at the front yard setback. It's where the house is placed. So when you have a pie-shaped lot, the portion of the lot along the right-of-way line is always going to be narrower than the minimum lot width, but the lot width that counts is where the front of that building sits, ultimately. Or if a lot is reverse pie-shaped, then you want that lot width at the back setback line. Instead
That
of the
does
front
seem to be the
setback line.
case for most of them, that they're on the curve, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
How you doing? How you doing? Okay. All right. Everybody had their input. All right. Let's move to residential questions,
Sure.
if we can.
Do you want folks to
Why
come
don't
up
you
here?
stay
Do you
there?
wanna
I
stay here?
think what
Okay.
I'll have people do is just stand up where they're sitting and ask the question. And I have a sign-in sheet with folks that have asked to speak. I'll go off of this sheet first. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, did you? Yes, sir. I think we'll be fine as long as you can hear. Oh, you got to record. Okay. Let's put a mic up then. Yeah. Turn it around this way. Okay, we're going to ask you to come up and speak into the mic because we are recording this meeting. So first I have Larry Shoemaker. Is Larry here? He's coming around. He's going the wrong way. That's okay. We lost Larry. Pardon? Is there Teresa and Dave Stats? would like to speak? Thank you, Dave. Just push the button there, David, on the bottom. Yeah.
Dave Stats, 687 Fescue Road, Galena. I just wanted to talk a little bit about
Thank you for that. I think the speed bumps is a good idea. I wish I had them in my neighborhood. One thing that is good about this design, I mean, I'm sure you've all driven by this road stub and knew that eventually it would connect to a road. I mean, that's just the way it was designed. So even though it's unfortunate for you that it's going to happen sooner than later, it's probably not a surprise. But a positive thing is the way that it comes in, and then immediately there'll be a stop sign. So traffic coming into that road that that is perpendicular will be slowing as they come through that end of Fescue. Cars that turn onto Fescue will be accelerating, but from a stop. So that's just one optimistic thing I can see with the way that it's designed is that it's not just an easy come into that fescue and just zip right around to the to Walnut Street. There's going to be some weaving in and out.
Absolutely would consider it, Dave. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a full traffic connection or an emergency connection right there? Okay.
It's regular road with the curbs and the whole.
Well, I know. I'm just saying.
I visited it today, so.
If is it a regular, is it for regular traffic or just for emergency access?
In this
No, this is
in this diagram.
it's
it'll be
it's
full
one of the
traffic.
exits. It's a cut in one of the exits. So
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think, and it's a really good question. First off, I'd just like to articulate the developer shares your sentiment that we would love for ODOT to give us an access on Route 3. If we were able to get an access on Route 3, it would make this land incredibly more valuable. And it probably would have been developed for a commercial use at this point in time. One of the reasons that it's not being developed as a primarily commercial use is because the only access is off of Walnut. But even if we could do our community with an access to Route 3, that would be extremely preferable. We've had numbers of conversations with ODOT. They're not willing to grant any access. At the end of the day, I don't know if any of us has enough pull with the state representatives to lean on ODOT to make that happen. And I know a number of people have tried, but also in regards to the connection, that's I think what some other folks were saying is correct. The county, when your subdivision was built, required that connection because they anticipated at some point this piece of property was going to develop and they would have to make that connection. So it's really the county and the fire department are the two people who are going to require that connection because the fire department has to have a second way in and out from an emergency perspective. And the county always wants to have cross connection between communities. If there were a way to explore it, to cut that connection off, but there's just, the county isn't going to allow us to do that. And we've been working with the county, we've been working with ODOT as we go through the traffic study, because we have to study all of those intersections. We have to look at the intersection of Walnut and Route 3, and if there's going to be any impact to the operation of that light there. We obviously have to look at Walnut Road. We have to look at a lot of the surrounding roads. So we're continuing to have those conversations, and I think we understand the angst. But I think we're all fighting an uphill battle to try to get connection out to Route 3, unfortunately.
And Gary, on this traffic study we mentioned earlier, one of the things we have, I guess, promoted back to your team,
Yeah.
is when you look at the traffic impact on Walnut and 3, there's also going to be impact at Dustin and 3, right? Just because of the way the traffic's going to come in and so you'll see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
See that.
Yeah, the ODOT and the county are going to make us study any of the intersections that potentially have impact as part of the traffic study. And ultimately, it's going to be on the development and the developer to respond and mitigate any of those impacts. That's going to be the burden of the developer. So whatever the traffic study kind of comes out and says, and the county and ODOT are going to review that traffic study, and they're going to either say we agree with the findings or we don't agree with the findings. Whatever the traffic impact study says that we have to do, that's what we're going to have to do. I think they want to one at a time.
Yeah, I'm going to go through this list and then we'll let anybody else that want, because we did have people sign in and ask to speak. Next up is Tom and Marlene. Pardon? Yeah. Yeah, another question on this topic. So we're going to have to come up to because we are recording. We're going to move the speakers to the podium, please. That way we can get you on the recording. Is it turned on over there, Tom?
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Susko. I live at 657 Fescue, which is on the corner, right where we're talking about. So we did know that the street was there. We do acknowledge that it could potentially become a subdivision and that there would be potentially traffic going down through there. The unfortunate thing, though, is that there's one entrance in the back of this. We could get another entrance into the back of this neighborhood off of Zor down by the power lines. There's unused ground. There's a big buffer between the last house on Zor and the power lines, and there could be a street if they eliminated, say, 1 or 2 lots over on that corner of those patio homes and have a street going in and out of there. So that's another possibility as an entrance in and out of this neighborhood, if we could please consider that.
Would the homeowners association for the community allow us to purchase that or give us that right away?
I don't know. I can't speak for that, but I'd like that to be explored. Another thing would be that the Fescue Road entrance in and out of this neighborhood be a key card. I don't think we need speed bumps. I don't think the speed. We watch people going around the corner of Fescue to Zor at like 30 miles an hour constantly, and people don't stop at the stop signs. They just run up and down Zor at high speeds. And we have little kids on bicycles and people with their dogs and, people everywhere walking, even people walking the streets and not on the sidewalks in our neighborhood. So if we had a key card at that entrance, then the people who lived in each neighborhood might be able to access the gate that goes up and down and be able to travel freely through there. But then anybody else that's not in the neighborhood or people are just cutting through or driving too fast wouldn't be able to do that.
I think that's definitely something that we can talk to the county and the fire department. I don't know if they'll allow it, but
I don't know either.
It never hurts to ask the question.
Yeah. So, we have little key cards to get in and out of our community pool. We could have a little key card to get in and out of that part of the neighborhood too. That's what I wanted to bring up.
That might be an issue when you have emergency vehicles or people have to get in and out really quickly.
Hi, I'm Nancy Sizer. I'm on High Street. I just know there's the little road up there on 3C, the little tiny driveway-like thing where the police officers often sit. Could you look into purchasing that and using that as a way in? That's all.
Yeah, up before.
That's
the-
actually
It's
access.
the church
We've-
entrance, back entrance. there.
We've, that's the exact spot that we've been trying to gain access to for
Yeah.
several mayors now.
Yeah.
And
The-
they're not budging.
The church owns that property. I have met with ODOT twice. I have another meeting next week with them on this topic. Like Gary said, they're very hesitant, and reluctant to do anything there, but we'll keep trying. Maybe you can help.
We're happy to have a conversation with anybody. I mean, if it helps the community, if it helps the development, we're happy to have a conversation with anybody. We're all bound by the same rules, unfortunately. So, but if it means picking up the phone or showing up at a meeting, we're always willing to do it.
I might invite you.
Invite Jim. He's got nothing to do all day long.
Okay. Tom and Marlene Heston.
Hi, I'm Marlene Heston. I live at 754 Zor Street. So I would like to address some of the same concerns that the two gentlemen before me did. I think most people who purchased property in the retreat in Galena knew that that dead-end street would eventually go somewhere. But the bigger concern, for me at least, is when you're talking 223 dwellings in there, and you're talking approximately 2 cars per house, that's 450 cars that are going to go out one of those 2 exits, either coming out of Fescue or coming out of Walnut Street. So, I go down Zor Street and go out on Heathermere onto Walnut Street, and a lot of times there's already 5 or 6 cars backed up at that traffic light going on to Route 3. So when you impact that with 450 possible cars and people going to work or coming home or whatever, it's going to be horrific. But this is the bigger concern that I have. The retreat in Galena has private streets. They're not maintained by the village of Galena. So you're going to ask the homeowners in the retreat at Galena to pay for the usage of our streets, the maintenance, the wear and tear of all these additional cars that you may be sending through our neighborhood. So it's not just the traffic issue, it's the issue of the impact that it has on our streets that the homeowners have to pay for, because it's a private, they're the private streets back in there. I think you're shaking your head, so you're aware of that. So I would like to propose that either, I don't know how the builder would be responsible for coming in and maintaining our streets, but I think that the village of Galena should definitely pick up the tab for that, not expect our homeowner dues to pay for it.
Well, that might be another good thing, I think, just to share, a good point to share with the county as we have a lot of these discussions. It is a good point. If I'm assuming it's kind of a mix of public and private streets in there. Yeah, so I think that's definitely something to bring up with the county and how we mitigate the impact of any of that. If it is key card access or something that keeps people out, I don't know what that answer is. I don't know what the county will allow. But that's a good point, and I can certainly understand everybody not wanting their homeowners association dues to go up because of traffic that's really not related to their streets. I think we can all sympathize with that. In regards to
clarify that?
in regards to the rest of the traffic questions, certainly that's one of the reasons why we're undergoing this comprehensive traffic study, is to kind of understand what the impacts are. what the traffic flow will be to those intersections. So if it's an additional intersection widening or stacking or any of those things, the traffic study is going to uncover that, and we'll have to make those improvements. So we'll be taking a very hard look at that, and it's ultimately the county and ODOT who are going to have say over what those improvements are that we're required to do. It isn't something that we get to decide for ourselves. It's those regulatory agencies that are going to govern that. Yeah. $30 miles, no, but the county, I'm not sure what it is, to be honest with you. The county regulates that. I mean, the county does this on a day-to-day basis with all the developments throughout Delaware County. So, all of those streets, they have specific requirements in terms of understanding which intersections have the potential or likelihood to be impacted. And then we have to run, or the traffic engineers have to run, kind of a trip generation analysis. They have computer programs that you just plug in the numbers and it will kind of show how that traffic gets dispersed. And what they end up doing is they end up taking a look at all of the intersections, and they give all of the intersections that the county makes you study a grade, A down through F. And if the impact to any of those intersections, drops the grade of how that intersection's functioning, then they look at, how do you mitigate that through improvement. So the county's going to dictate to us exactly which intersections based on their protocol. I don't know exactly what they are. We'll know more as the traffic study progresses, and we'll be able to share
Our
that.
village administrator, Tom, has some information that will help clarify. So let's give him a moment to speak.
Okay, thank you. Actually, the public and private road ownership, I'm going to go up to the screen to explain it.
That loop. Yeah, I think what they're saying is, as you go around that loop, there's an exit out onto Fescue.
Okay, I think the concern has been noted, and we'll look into it. So let's move on to the next subject, please.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Jill, Lyle? Yeah, it's a podium. Yeah, thank you.
I want to mention one thing. We could put cameras up here, which actually would go to the police or the state patrol, and they can actually send these people tickets. There are such things. And if people don't stop at the stop sign, or people do not, or they're driving too fast, we take a picture and we send them a notice or a ticket. I know that it does have that ability. So.
Jill Love, 311 Caleb's Court, Village of Galena. I just wanted to ask, one of the things I think we're super excited about is that it's Romanelli, right, that came to the village to present this opportunity for us. We obviously are working with MI, who's another very established builder up at Miller Farm. But I think as things were growing here, a lot of people said, well, if it's Romanelli, because they do have a great reputation. One of the things that I just want to confirm is that you are doing the entire project and not selling out single-family lots to other builders. So I just want to kind of confirm for my clarity if which is the case. Yeah, I think that's because if it's sold out to other builders, we all know that that can start to lose the integrity of the development. So, thank you.
I think, and what Jim's trying to say, the important part of this is that Romanelli and Hughes it stays the master developer. So they are the architectural review board essentially for the development.
All right.
I'll cross
Back
the
up.
other way.
We're back up and going. Did you want to finish?
You want me to finish that statement?
Whatever it was.
Whatever it was. Okay. For the purpose of the recording and the microphone, so Romanelli and Hughes maintains or stays the master developer for the entire development. So even if they do allow other builders to build in the single family area, those other builders are going to have to develop or build their homes to Romanelli and Hughes standards, the standards that they establish for the development, because ultimately it's their name, it's their stamp on the development. So they have a reputation to uphold. They want to maintain a level of quality in the development, and they'll be the architectural review board for the development. As long as they meet the standards, it could be, it could be a combination of any. I would say I don't know, because I ultimately, that's going to be a question that Romanelli and Hughes has to answer. I think their intent right now is to build as much as they can handle. They are a small company, and so I think a lot of the design that they've provided are things that they'd like to do. Certainly the patio homes, they're building a lot of those, and the townhomes. So far they've expressed an interest in doing those. So I think to the extent that they can, they will.
All right, next up, Josh Porter. If you don't mind going. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, everybody said at least 3 minutes.
Do I need to watch my watch on this one, or?
Come on, please.
Well, Monday, to give everybody 2 and 3 minutes. So, well, we definitely talked about that. So I appreciate all the questions too that you guys are bringing to the table tonight. I really appreciate it. I think you asked the good questions. Those are a lot of the same questions I had. And I just really encourage you guys to continue to ask those questions and stick to your guns. Because I was shocked tonight to hear the setbacks. Miller Farm that we have over there is 16 feet, and we fought pretty hard to keep that. And they would keep put pressure on us. So 16 feet is what we ended up at Miller Farm. They said it was 12 tonight, which was kind of a little bit of a shock, I think. And the density, too, being twice is what I think it's supposed to be at, 4? What's that? And this is at 8.93.
Well, that's something that we're going to look into.
So that's what I'm saying. Just I encourage you guys to continue to do that, and I hope you guys at Romanelli Hughes will just really hear us out as residents. We came into this area to try to have a low-key lifestyle, and I'm pretty sure all of us here are trying to maintain that. And you talked about, traffic being a big deal for you. I live at 138 North Walnut by the street, by the way. So we see traffic fly up and down our street. The top one going this month was 71 miles an hour. Of court, right, according to
Mhm.
the record. So, and you said there's 450 possible cars over there, but that's plus the 300, and I think it was 326 parking spots for the commercial, so that's closer to about 800. And so traffic is a huge deal for me and my family. I've watched cars zip down here, and a big thing has been for me as a council member here, I'm also on council, has been to try to provide police special duty to just keep traffic down on our street. So that's another big question. I think if there's any way that you can, I don't know how we, Jeff, Mayor, we can put into this some kind of, negotiation that they help supply with some of the commercial property that's going to be built there, special allocation to that fund. And so, yeah, just please keep asking the tough questions and stick to your guns. I look forward to continue to work with you guys, and hopefully we make a project that makes everybody happy here in the village. Thanks.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you,
I do
Josh.
want to make a clarification on the density. If we're looking at the entire acreage and the 223 homes that are in it, that's a density of 2.62. If we're looking at just the concentration of the townhomes, we limit that multifamily homes at 25%, and they're at 35.8. So there is a density discrepancy, but it's not as bad as what I made it sound like previously. So I apologize for that.
Do we, just out of curiosity, what's the overall density for Miller Farms? Do we know?
2.
Two? Okay. Well, the other thing that I would like to point out is there's certainly some stark differences between the type of project that we're developing and what Miller Farms is. Miller Farms is kind of on the interior of the Galena area. It's kind of over off of, the country roads. It's real close to kind of the village core, and it's intended to be more of just a strictly residential development.
It is a planned residential district, so yeah, it has a limit of 2. As a planned mixed-use district, it doesn't have that same limitation.
Right. And we're a development that is a mix of commercial and different types of residential, and we're adjacent to a state highway. I mean, a lot of traffic. So there are some real differences that I think as a planner, I could say it's more appropriate to have a little bit more density over here than it would be at Miller Farms, just because of the nature of where we are. So, I don't know if everybody feels that way, but as a planner, these are the kind of things that I deal with.
I think it's
every day.
reasonable, to Josh's point, just so you know, we have a safety and security committee we established in the village, and we've spent hours and hours thinking through and planning for slowing traffic, addressing some of the issues that Josh just presented. Budgets are not huge here, right? We will be installing some traffic calming devices on Walnut Street, but we also heard that people on Zor Street have some similar concerns, and so we need to look into that as a committee as well. But those are very big concerns for us. It's just slowing down that traffic. We know that there's an increase in the amount of traffic, and it's not residents necessarily. It's a lot of cut-through traffic as they try to get from the west side of the county to the east side.
And I think, we're certainly concerned, from our development's perspective, we don't want a lot of cut-through traffic either. But the county is going to kind of dictate what we can and can't do there ultimately. The other thing that I would like to say, I think it is important to kind of keep in mind that if this site were to be developed as it's currently zoned as a planned commercial development, the traffic would be significantly higher than what we're proposing now. So I understand this is going to be an increase in traffic, and we're going to study that, and we're going to analyze it, and we're going to pay for the mitigation of that as we need to with the traffic study. But I think overall, we are talking about potentially a decrease in traffic from what could ultimately be built here today. So I think it's important to keep that in mind too.
Thank you, Gary. Julie Doucette.
Hi, Jillian Doucette, 630 Flintlock Drive. I'm also on council, just for full disclosure. So my community, for everyone to know, sits in between the retreat and Heathermere. So along Zor and then down that line. I'm here speaking on behalf of a lot of those residents in that community. It's younger families with smaller children, so it's hard to make it here. I have a couple neighbors here to keep me honest with the questions that they wanted me to ask and comments. Overall, we're very happy to hear that Romanelli's come to the table and that the opportunity to keep this land at Arrowhead, which directly affects my neighbors and my community, has the opportunity to stay here in Galena and not potentially go to Sunbury or somewhere else where we may not have any say. So thank you for that. And the design overall is really great. Couple questions. So my neighbors on Zor, a huge concern for them, and we've mentioned it, is just the tree lines. They bought the golf course. They know it probably wasn't always going to stay that way, but there are beautiful trees making that barrier. You did mention that eventually it'll be turned over to the HOA, and it's only as good as the HOA is. So I'm just asking and kind of bringing awareness for yourself, zoning, the lawyers, when you're writing these documents, ensuring that that stays in, that those mature trees stay in there, whether it goes to the HOA can't approve a homeowner asking for a variance and tearing down those trees. Just, again, if we could keep that to the forefront, that's just a huge need.
There's one real easy way to deal with that. We could just establish a permanent landscape easement over that ground with the specification that no existing trees can be removed unless they're dead, diseased, or dying.
Sounds good. Sounds fair.
Yeah, I was kind of under the impression that that's what that space was intended for anyhow, like that's what you were planning.
Our subdivision regulations have a pretty thorough tree preservation section. It's almost 10% of the entire document. So homeowners should not be able to just cut down a tree or an HOA because they feel like it. There is a process. Now it's just making sure that they know that. But I like his idea.
Okay, I do like that. Yeah, thank you. Again, a lot of these are just questions that my neighbors have asked me to ask. So I want to make sure that I'm on record asking them as their council person. Traffic and safety, I feel that we have all expressed that and covered that, so I feel like we could check that off. One topic I would like to bring up, just because it is traffic and safety, not to this development, but on Arrowhead, if we're looking at speed bumps, maybe we could put that on a road map, because the traffic there where the school buses pick us up, they just fly down Arrowhead. So side note to that. Let's see. One thing that the community wanted, again, walkable. We would like to see more retail in the plan versus office space, just because with all of the people coming and am I coming, we need more places to go. We need more retail, more restaurants, coffee shop. Like we just need more. So I don't know if that would be an opportunity. Let's see. I did have a question if there would be an opportunity for the residents of the village, so not only my community, but all of us that live here that'll be using this space, if we could possibly do like a wish list survey of what retail we would like to see come. Just a thought. I'm asking all of them, Sarah. As far as the townhomes are concerned, this one confused me because I grew up living in a townhome, but it was a rental. So when I hear townhomes, I just think a rental apartment, basement, other garage. So it just took me a second to get my mind wrapped around this townhome. And what we do like hearing is that it is a for owner. So there will be property taxes. They'll have ownership and responsibility to maintaining that. And I do agree with Michelle. I had to go see them for myself. Again, I just had the visual of what I grew up. They are really beautiful. They're really, really beautiful. My home is only 4 years old, and when I walked in, I wish I had a lot of their finishes, and I was very jealous of what these looked like. So I think it would just be a great thing for Galena to have. It's unique and different. And the type of individual that typically would live here, I think of my sister who can't find a house. She's single. She works and she travels a lot. She doesn't want to maintain a yard. She doesn't want to pay rent. She wants to be able to afford something that she can invest into. So, next when she has kids, she can get a house. So I think this is what that type of person would be, and that would be also a low resource on our school district. Just thinking about that as a mom. Let's see. As we were talking, and we were talking about the retreat, I think we mentioned this, is that an idea could be is having the retreat have key cards. So then nobody can get into your area without living in that area. Because I know that some of your street is cut off, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but that could be an opportunity that we could just explore and look into. That is all I have. Did I cover everything? Okay. So more comments than anything, but thank you, and we're very happy to have some things here.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. I think we understand kind of everybody's desire for the retail. Obviously, this is going to be market driven. To the extent that we have office, and I can't foresee the future, but there might be an opportunity for some type of an urgent care, something like that here, that could serve the community. We're hoping for more retail as well. Restaurants, I think everybody would like to see more restaurants, coffee shops, things of those nature. And so if you have things, that you want to see, I'm sure Romanelli and Hughes would be happy to take a list from you. I don't know if they would be able to make all of the magic happen, because a lot of it's going to be driven by the market, but they're going to pursue uses that they think will hold value and have benefit to the community as well.
Anybody else have any? Mike Fry, want to come up?
Mike Fry, 184 North Walnut Street. I'm also on council, so full disclosure. A few points, a couple of questions. One, Miller Farm was platted back in like 2008. So, I understand your point from a economic developer point of view, but, it's hard to say that one side of the village should have to stay to a certain level of density and the other side doesn't just because it's 2025, So
I don't think it's so much the date of when that happened as to like the type of district that's being developed.
Sure.
So as a residential district only,
Mhm.
then that's where the two
Right.
applies in the zoning code. But for a planned mixed use district, that two limit does not apply.
Sure. We just want to
And I
make sure we're adhering to the
I think the
code.
point that I was trying to make is one of them is adjacent to a major thoroughfare.
Sure.
And the other one is kind of off in a quiet part of the community. They're different.
Right. Next question would be for you on the traffic study. Did they include Miller Farm when they were doing the traffic study, or as part of the ongoing traffic study, are they considering the impact? Because that's 353 homes, so 700 more cars matched with 400 cars plus all the 450 maybe commercial up and down Walnut. Right now we've already got, I wouldn't call it a level 1 crisis. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a mouse up here. It's already an issue. It's like, I think Councilman Porter pointed out correctly, we've been studying, the rates of speed for a long time. We've been told by several elected officials in the past it's not an issue until we started actually collecting data and found out it's a major issue. My concern has always been, what's all this development going to do for Walnut with just these two? I mean, God knows how many some people want to build after this, expanding the village and whatnot. But is that part of it though, Miller Farm?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what the county has mandated be included in that study. That's probably a Larry Creed question, but they have to take the background traffic and the available background traffic information that they know about into consideration, and then add our traffic into it, or our new traffic into it. So if the background traffic includes some of the traffic generated from that development as well, then it probably does, to the extent that it impacts the areas that we're going to impact.
Because most likely those 700 cars are coming right down Walnut to go to Kroger.
Yeah.
To get into Delaware, going west at all, for sure. And then you had addressed a couple of things a couple of good questions came out of zoning tonight. One was on the cap, and I can't remember, was it you or Michelle who brought up where we at 35%.
Say more words. Oh, yeah. Okay,
On the
thank you.
multifamily. So, I just want to read how we define multifamily in our code. Any housing unit with a shared wall, ceiling, or floor. Examples of multifamily residences defined in this could include, but are not limited to, apartments, townhomes, duplexes, condominiums, or any other housing unit that may share the same features as apartments, townhomes, duplexes, and condominiums. And I was on zoning when we added that to the code over the last couple of years. The spirit of that rule and that definition was to define everything with a shared wall as multifamily. So if there's a discrepancy that maybe a developer is bringing to the zoning board, I would say we should probably address that. I will on my part on council, but I don't think that there's a contradiction in there. I think that's his interpretation, but
Yeah, we'll have more conversations about that, and and it appears to me that it's exceeding the 25%, and we would ask them to identify that as a divergence. So
right.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
And we can do that.
point. I think that's the point. I mean, you're looking at a 40% divergence there on the cap on multifamily coming in. The other would be the side setbacks. I remember when we were discussing Miller Farm with the fire department, they said that 12 feet was a no-go. Any home. So, and I know you're coming at it from a developer's, point of view. You're concerned only about fire, but we're also concerned about the perception of the community and just overall safety, not just what a fire department can get a ladder up. So, we want to look at that. And again, with all of these concerns, especially with traffic, I mean, we're looking at, we have no police here. So if you have a traffic concern, it's very relevant to anything that we do here in the village. And I hear you from my seat. So that, and then the last one I would have is, have there been any negotiations about upgrading the size of the sewer pipe beyond the scope of this project for the Village of Galena wastewater treatment plant?
That is probably a Jim or Kyle question.
It's not part of your. Uh-huh. Sure. So there hasn't been any negotiations as part of. Mm-hmm. Okay. What about from zoning or the mayor? Have we had any conversations with the developer about that? Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Of Zor and Fescue. And my question is, will Fescue be open for the cement trucks and dump trucks to be going through the residential neighborhood to go into the back of Arrowhead to do the development? And do you know now if you'll be developing the front part off of Walnut in the commercial area, the townhomes, and then the residential homes? Or will it just be a mixture of each of the projects you're doing?
The development will probably be developed in phases, but from a developer's perspective, the ideal thing would be to get sections of the street in that would allow them to start selling all the product at the same time. So they would want to be able to sell some single-family homes, some patio homes, some townhomes, the commercial. So they will have to put a significant amount of that infrastructure up front. From a construction traffic standpoint, they're going to have to do kind of a maintenance of construction traffic plan. So they're going to have to work that out with the contractors where they can and can't exit. What roads they need to use to get in and out of, construction entrances and those kind of things. Ideally, it would be to keep them off of those.
Well, they could not go through Fescue because
Right.
that's all residential up through there.
Yeah.
So that would not be anything we could do.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions.
Sure.
Hello, Ryan Smirgy. I live at 545 Zor Street, so have many of the same words as you mentioned, a lot of the same things. But what I wanted to bring up was The bike path, I see that, where it goes underneath the electric lines. So the last part of that is the connector. Whose responsibility is that connector into that other subdivision to Zor Street?
We would make that connection.
Okay. And that would be put through with HOA that we have that connection to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would depend on some permission. If there's no easements there for the bike path, it would depend on the permission of whoever owns that ground for us to be able to make that connection. We just committed to the village that we would make the connection available, and that as long as we were, permitted, we would make that connection.
Okay, that's great. And I would just ask that there would be actual cutouts of the sidewalk, because currently there's no cutouts even to the mailboxes. So just a ramp to actually get onto the sidewalk, because that currently does not exist to do anything for bike paths or anything like that from Zor Street. So that would be the request.
Like a handicap ramp, you mean?
Yeah. Next question or next statement would be about, we talk about Miller Farms, we talk about this, it sounds like, we'll just say 1,000, 13, 14, I don't know the number of total population increase, but first appreciate the new playground that was put in this year. My kids appreciate it and love it, so I want to thank you for that. But as we talk about that, and the wear and tear on that and the usage of that will, of course, increase. So is there a possibility in this plan in the Village Green area to possibly talk about a playground in those spaces with all the residential being added with Miller Farms and putting strain on the resources of the actual town playground area to where this could be a more closer area for all the residents of Arrowhead today and Zor Street.
I mean, on that topic, I'll just throw that out there. If some of that land could be donated to the village to take over for park use, we'd be very open to that discussion, right?
Yeah,
I
think we
mentioned
could have some
earlier-
ongoing discussions on that. Another opportunity, depending on how the community green was going to be used in the future, another opportunity for a playground use would be to put it kind of in the single-family park sub area where primarily people are going to, have kids and raise families. It would be a little closer. So if you own single-family homes around that park, it's a little easier for you to say, yeah, kids, go over to the playground than it is to, hey, go down across from the commercial area and play on the playground.
I'm sorry, Kerry. Also, just on this topic, we have Bland Park. It's not been developed yet, but we have that land that's ours. So we've been going through some thought process, and I would assume that we'll have some kind of plans going in there next year.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, and I appreciate that. And like I said, overall, appreciate of Romeo and Hughes. Like I said, like you mentioned, happy if it's going to be developed that it's done by them. If it's going to be developed, so on the same board there, and appreciate the lot size or the easement of 30 feet. My house goes back up to the golf course, so I do appreciate those 30 feet. And then, as you mentioned, writing in about the trees, because most of those trees are directly on the line. So who says on the easement or whatever that is? So writing those in that they must stay unless of course dead makes sense, and I do appreciate that. So that's just what I wanted to mention. So thank you.
Anybody else? It's been a long night. Yes, sir. You want to come up?
Hello, my name's Brad Franz. I live at 745 Bodkin, which is in the private street section. And I haven't met anybody that is in the retreat that's, bought a new home that was informed that those streets were private. The builder tried to start us out with a reserve of $1,200, if I'm not mistaken. We got that up a little bit, but I'll tell you that there's a large percentage of the folks in there are retired, right? Including myself, my wife, and most of that row. Okay, so I already have concerns without this happening about there potentially being a special assessment. And I'm, people that don't understand that could be, instead of an increase in your quarterly dues, annual dues, what have you, we need this chunk of change right now, right? So I already had some reservations about the way it wasn't disclosed, and that's on no one here, right? But it's just giving you our situation, right? And so, you know, if on the second fescue, which is actually Bodkin, it shows 2 fescues, if people turn left coming from the new development, Bodkin connects up, right? So that's what people were trying to say, that, you know, these two meet, right? So there's possible that my street might be handling some of this traffic. And those streets that are private are slightly narrower, and if people are parked on it, it's already a mess. You know what I mean? In terms of trying to get through and whatnot. So at any rate, you know, my concern is, and I'll try to wrap it up, you know, if it goes as currently stated and nothing is done, you know, whether it's limiting who can get into the private streets or, you know, Galena with the extra tax revenue, taking that over, because that would place a huge hardship on a retiree to say, you know, I don't know what streets cost to redo, but I'm sure it's not cheap, right? And it could force people out of their homes. You know what I mean? So.
Thank you for that. And let me just clarify what I think I heard you say. You would like the developer to consider maybe some kind of a stipend for the installation of a key card access for those private streets. Is that right? I just wanted to make sure that I heard you correctly. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Have the village take over the streets? Yeah, that's another.
You have your own separate HOA there, right? Correct? I think it's, I don't know how it happened like that. It's kind of strange. Doesn't make sense. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, good point, good point.
I personally think we need to look into why was it that way, and then forget why was it that way. Put you just like every other road. Mhm. Mhm.
That tells me that the street was probably supposed to be there, and the builder said, oh, we need these private streets, we can cram more units in here. And so now the manhole.
So this is why you want a good builder. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. Oh, Zach. Okay, Zach.
Hi, Zach Hopper, 275 Harrison Street, and the 5th council member to speak during this meeting. Okay, so first, Jeff, I'm going to ask you for clarification because I don't think you said this. Just, I already know the answer, but just for everybody in the crowd, this Arrowhead Golf Course is already annexed into Galena.
It's currently part of the village,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Because I know this question got asked during the previous week. Okay, so my second thing, I'm going to quote a section from the zoning code, which is 17.06 development standards on density, because it specifically talks about the Route 3 corridor. The Route 3 corridor. Parcels located alongside the Route 3 corridor provide the ideal location and opportunity for a mix of professional office, commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential uses within the village, which allows for the preservation of net developable acres with a PMUD. A higher density residential use is permitted and included in this mix to provide this area with housing for individuals that will work and at companies and businesses that locate in and around the Route 3 corridor. So I take that as why it is above what we would classify as our 2-unit an acre goal, because that's what we try and have succeeded for all of our other developments. So using this, I understand why it is slightly higher than what we'd want personally. I also think it's high. I like the 2 units an acre, but there's a zoning code explanation of why we're considering doing this.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome. And so I know I have asked Romanelli and Hughes Company this question on the prior iteration of this. So just to clarify again, for section 4 and 5 on this map, will there be on-street parking? Because previously it was no. So the single family house residence.
So I would imagine what we typically shoot for in the single family on the public streets and the patio home on the public streets is parking on one side opposite of the fire hydrants. So those streets, the way they're designed, are typically designed to accommodate parking on one side of the street. And the county always prefers that to be opposite the side of the street that the fire hydrants are on so that they can easily access the fire hydrants in an emergency. Yep.
And you're going to verify the width of those streets for us.
Yeah, we'll verify the widths of those streets. They meet they will meet the public street standards. They're going to have the required right of way, and they will be public streets, and they'll be required to meet those the public street standards for width and everything else. That's what we would typically prefer.
Okay. So for section 3, in the previous iteration you brought forward, so in this case it would be Soaring Eagle Loop, Buffalo Lane, Rising Sun Lane, and Moon Bear Loop.
That's the townhomes you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the previous version, those were classified as the private streets, so their sub HOA would be in charge of those, like Bodkin Lane that was mentioned previously. Is that still going to be the case?
Yes, that is the intent.
Okay. The next question is the parking lots for section 1. In the previous version, they were also private. Is that going to be the case here? So their sub HOA will be fully in charge of them. I'm pretty sure you mentioned this earlier.
The parking areas?
Yes.
Yes, that'll be part of the commercial sub area.
Okay, my next question is, do we have any idea of what the speed limit of the sections are going to be? Because we got different uses throughout this whole project.
The county will dictate it, or you guys will dictate it, but I'm assuming that it'll be 25 miles per hour throughout.
Okay. And then in section 6, earlier you mentioned about Jim Grossinger's new building that's going in somewhere near his barn.
Down in the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know where the driveway is going to go? Is it going to connect to this project, or is it going to connect into Heathermere somewhere?
No, it's actually it's kind of hard to see, but it's gonna come up the side of the property line between the pond and the property line, if that makes sense. Yes. Yeah, I'll try to.
Okay. On the south side of that one pond? Okay. Is this slide 3? Which way should I click?
The driveway, to answer your question, the driveway will come up right here between the pond and the property line and come along.
There you go. When Mike knocked it over, it changed the page. That is okay. That is all of my questions.
Mayor, I actually have a question. Oh, sorry.
That's AEP. I don't have an answer.
I've never been asked that question before.
But yeah. AEP is working on upgrades right now. I know that. I don't know the specifics, but yeah, I've certainly.
Yeah, I do. Could you, do you know the price points of these various items?
Jimmy's talking to you.
Sorry.
I definitely want this recorded.
Right now, if I look at today's dollars, because it's so hard to determine as we move forward on the project, but if I look at today's dollars, looking at the townhomes and the way we've designed them, they're probably mid fours. I would say the patio homes are probably mid sixes, and the single families will be 700 and up. If I looked at today's dollars with is what we're doing. So if we all know that, it probably is higher than that by the time we get started.
Too rich for my blood.
One thing
Mine
I'll
too.
say on the power concerns, and Jim, feel free to correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but part of what you guys have to go through as a developer is for your financing and everything that you're going to do is getting will serve letters from all the utilities, right? So it's up to AEP to commit to powering the development before this can even get started. They have to commit to that and then figure it out on their end. So they'll address that one way or the other. So thank you. Yeah.
Listen, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We had a great showing tonight and great questions. I want to point you to our next meeting, which is June 18th at 7 p.m. right here. The Romanelli team will be back. So if you develop more questions, you can pose them then, or if you want to just send me an email with your questions, I'm happy to field those questions. But thank you for coming out. Zoning's going to take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 9:35. Thank you.
drove it today. So then even the retail people can't go out that way. I don't get that. We don't own all the streets in our village. Silent.
Okay, we're going to bring this meeting back to order at 9:34. All right. First, before we get to the zoning report, I just want to make mention of Matt's prowess. He ran the Capital City Half Marathon the other week. Yeah. And I think you had sub 10-minute times for every mile. I couldn't do it if I had to. All right, thank you, Matt. So we'll move to zoning report.
I didn't expect that to come up this evening, so I'm a little embarrassed, but thank you. Okay. So we'll start with major subdivisions. Blackhawk Phase D, everything's been cleaned up, and the subdivision is ready for final acceptance. There's no more empty lots, and they're working through all that with council.
On that one, that's the one we had first reading with council this
Yes.
Past Monday. Okay.
Miller Farm Section 1, all the public infrastructure is complete up to the pump station. The pump station construction is ongoing. This says 12, but as of today, 13 of 33 parcels are currently in some stage of the permitting process. Columbia Gas is done with the main gas line installation, and we granted them a permit for all of the service line runs in Section 1, so they're in the middle of putting all those in. For Section 2, improvement plans for phases A, B, and C have all been approved, and the construction's underway. KEM's engineering inspector is out there daily doing inspections of everything going on. For Section 3A, construction plans have been approved. The development plan needs to be finalized prior to starting construction, and they've also asked to split that section into 2 phases, so it'll be Section 3A1 and Section 3A2. And the road widening is all complete on Sunbury Road. We had some property maintenance violations. The one at 475 North Walnut Street and 502 Zor Street have both been corrected. Everything's good there. The one at 95 Holmes Street is still ongoing. We're in the waiting period for the next step. They have a certain amount of time to correct the action before we do anything else. Or correct the problem, not the action.
While you're in that section, what about the one we talked about last meeting, 152, that they tore the house down and it's just sitting there? You were going to write them last meeting?
Oh, yeah, I did reach out to them, and then they've also staked the lot, so I think they're getting ready. Their permits are all good, so I'm going to reach out to them again because I never got a response. It's just from seeing stuff going on.
Do you know what the holdup was? Were they waiting for the Delaware County permits or something? Was that what it was?
No, they have them now. I think
Okay.
that they were finishing up the permit review or something to that
Okay.
effect. But yeah, if they're staking, then they're ready to go.
I mean, it's all still in shambles, but we'll give them a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it's been this long, and I know it's unsightly. But if they're going to start digging it up in a couple of weeks, it's kind of silly to make them grade and seed it and everything. You had me thinking about something else. Never mind. We're good. In the applications and inquiry, I did do a little bit more work with Steve Morton this week, agreed to. So now he is taking his surveyed plat of everything to the Delaware County offices so they can walk him through the process, and that'll all be good to go.
Does he, I looked up this address. Does he own multiple lots in that area?
So basically,
what's the issue?
He's wanting to modify
His
the
own
the
lot?
lot where the house is, and then also the lot next to it and the lot behind it. And once that's all modified, it's like 4 lots now, so it's going to become 3 separate lots. And then I think he's selling that back lot to the neighbor. So I actually had to go to the Sunbury guy for help on this one because I was like, this one's a little deep. And he looked at it and went, ooh, that's rough. But we came down that, he already did the survey, which is the hardest part of the whole thing. So now that that's taken care of, he just has to walk it through the
So
process.
his
with
intention
Delaware
is
County.
to redraw the lines so that he can sell pieces of it. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yeah, which I think that part's going to kind of be moot because I think the neighbor that's buying it isn't planning on doing anything with it. So that's a plus. And I did explain that if there was ever anything built on there, it would need rezoned because it's currently farm residential and that lot's way too small to be built on with all those regulations. So let me see here. There's a bunch of permits that were issued. I'm not going to go into a bunch of details on those. You can review those at your leisure. So that's it from me.
Any
What is
questions?
the
Go ahead.
268 North Walnut Street new sewer service from Miller Park? What is that? Is it Walnut Street or are we installing a bathroom at Miller Park?
Yeah, eventually. So we basically, that is us putting in an application to ourselves for that sewer service. So we have it on record and all the proper channels.
May I add to that? So we got a grant of $50,000 that is now ours. And the intent there is to pre-prep for the pavilion that will be there. And we'll bring water, sewer, and we'll bring a drinking fountain into the park. And so Tom's knee-deep in the hoopla trying to figure out how to get all that done. Right?
Yeah. And in the meantime, I was the nerd saying we need a piece of paper. So it's all on record. All right, that's it from me.
I have a question.
No.
I know. Sorry.
What do you got?
The highlighted ones, the hearing that we just had.
Yes.
I know he agreed to move the north house down to the south a little bit. And that would make him request a variance there. But is there room to move the south house down too? And then we wouldn't have even needed a variance?
Not without an additional variance because I think the rear setback becomes a problem
okay,
if you move
okay.
to the side.
Okay.
Because I thought of that too. I'm like, well, you could keep the space.
You would
in
push the
between,
setback
but-
on the other side then, as you're saying? So Matt, on this topic, can you just send him an email tomorrow and ask him to give him a date certain where he'll give you a new plan? Because that's what we approved, is that he would do that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to send him his new, well, I can't send him the certificate without the new plan, so I'll just say, hey, when you get a chance, send that over.
Can we get a visual of what it will look like when they push the house down to see how it looks from the?
Yeah, that's what it'll
exactly.
be.
So we see
I
what it
can
looks
can send it to everybody as long as it conforms. There's not really a need to bring it back
And if we
before the
made a
commission.
variance, we
But
could move that house down.
yeah, the hearing's done. We approved it, so yeah.
Him to follow up on what he agreed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison, any more questions?
I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Getting slap happy. I have a question for Allison. Do you have an update on the large boulder situation at MY Farm?
If it will ever stop raining, then Kathy and I will be able to meet with them. We have tried multiple times to set up time to go over with Kevin and Stover to see if we can talk about the placement of those boulders, but we haven't had a chance yet. And I think it's probably going to be muddy tomorrow. Is tomorrow Friday? Tomorrow's Thursday.
Tomorrow is Thursday.
Maybe Friday if it dries out a little bit. I work from home on Friday.
All right, well, the large boulder situation is still ongoing. Okay. All right, I just want to make a comment about the demolition permit that we've been working on for weeks and weeks now. First of all, Mayor Hopper had come forward last meeting and I guess spent quite a bit of time kind of talking through what his concerns and even helpful ideas might be. Matt sat down with Mayor Hopper and they worked out some of those details and put a draft back together. Okay. You all have a copy of that draft. Then Matt went to Ken Molnar, as he should have, and said, Ken, give us your opinion on everything. Ken has a list of things he wants us to talk about. This just came today, so my suggestion is that you and myself and Matt, maybe even Tom, sit down with Ken, schedule a meeting, see if we can't work out his concerns. And I think that would be the final step, to have something that we can actually feel like it's enforceable and something we can do and put in our zoning code. So if you're okay with that, I will work with you to get that scheduled. Okay? Anything else from anyone on the commission? We're pretty much done here. Next meeting is June 18th, 7 p.m. As I mentioned earlier, Romanelli will be back. We've scheduled this as a public hearing. So following that hearing, if we're comfortable enough, we could certainly consider the rezoning. There would be nothing more that we could actually do than that, but certainly something we can consider. So just be aware of that. And from commercial to plain mixed use.
Yeah, that's where we
Yep.
can, or you can. I can't do anything, but
right.
You can recommend the council to.
Because once we do that, then the
Rezone
process
it.
starts with council to have them consider the rezoning, I believe. Okay, I need a. They got some things. They got some things to work on from tonight. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody want a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Kathy, second. All in
I
favor,
happy
say
second.
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we've adjourned at what is that? 9:46.
I have a question.